It's not going very well. I feel like we're starting off quite negatively. Disappointed a lot this last 3 months. So unfortunately, it was not my favourite book. I shouldn't have bigged it up in my head as much as I did, but I did. That sucked. I got a little bit lost there. What is going on right now? Like, he is a strange dude. What's up guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Kizzy and today I'm going to be doing a wrap up of the last 3 months. I've been doing them every 3 months because I'm a little bit of a slow reader, so they were getting a little bit boring just talking about like 1 or 2 books. So I've been doing them every 3 months and this has been quite a slow 3 months anyway. So we're going to get into the video, but I haven't read a huge amount quantity wise. I have been in a little bit of a reading slump the last few weeks and I'm trying to claw my way out. It's not going very well. As long as we keep trying, that's all we can hope for. So this counts for December, January and February, this wrap up. A lot of them I have already done either separate vlogs for or separate reviews, so I'll just be doing a mini kind of wrap up of those, not going into too much detail. And then if you'd like to hear more, I will have the videos for those down below in the description box, and then I'll be going into more details. I have the books that I actually read, a DNF. I'm not 100% sure if I want to completely let this go yet. I have faith that I kind of will finish it, but this is the second time going into it, so I'm not 100% sure. And then 2 audiobooks as well that I will talk about that I read over the last 3 months. Starting off with one that I have got a full review for, so if you would like to see a complete spoiler-free review for this book, it is The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi by Shannon Chakraborty. She is the author of the City of Brass trilogy, one of my all-time favourite trilogies, literally ever. I read it a few years ago now, but I still feel like it would be a favourite even if I read it now. However, I didn't get on with this book quite as much. I didn't have as good a connection with the characters. We follow a pirate who's kind of given up piracy to raise her daughter. Something happened in the past that was kind of, I don't know, made her turn away from being a pirate. She, however, is brought back into piracy because the daughter of one of her old crew members who passed away has been kidnapped by these people, and the grandmother is hiring her to kind of go on one final last hurrah, pay her a lot of money, get all the money that she needs really to set up her family for life, and she's kind of drawn back into the way of piracy. There's a lot that goes on. You've got magical gin in there, you've got magical creatures, you've got kind of a little bit of a heist going on where they get the crew together and then they go on this kind of mission. So it had all the recipes to do well for me. I just didn't love the characters as much as I was hoping. Oh, I hate doing this in natural light. So unfortunately, it was not my favourite book of all time, which I was hoping it would be. This only came out recently, so I had high expectations and sadly they were not met in my opinion. Next we have ones that I've actually got quite a few vlogs for. So I'm currently reading One Piece, a manga, and it is the first kind of long manga that I've read. I read a few individual beginnings of manga, but I've not actually continued on reading them as of yet. I do hope to. There are a few that I would like to continue on with. However, this is the first one I've really probably like dived into, and it has just got better and better as it went on. So I'm excited to continue on going with this. The characters are great. Luffy is phenomenal. Some of the things that happened in the last vlog were just so good. I finished the first arc basically of One Piece and I'm about to start the next one. So hopefully it will just keep getting better as it goes on. So I am really enjoying this, especially as a newbie into manga, and I hope to continue on. But if you would like to see, they're not very long videos, see my whole journey reading through these, then please do check out those videos. I'll add the playlist, I think there's a playlist, down below. Next we have another one that I have done a review for, and that is The Lies of Locke Lamora. I feel like we're starting off quite negatively. This is maybe why I went into a reading slump, because a lot of these books I hoped to be so much better than they were, and I was disappointed a lot this last 3 months. So I'm hesitant to dive into another book just because I've got that kind of mistrust at the moment. But The Lies of Locke Lamora was one of my most anticipated reads for like years. I've had that book for years and I wanted to read it for years. It had everything I wanted, apparently. It had like the heisting, it had the found family trope, it had like thieves and all that kind of thing, and it sounded like it was going to be the best book ever. I did enjoy it. The bits that I loved in it weren't there enough. I wanted to see more between Locke and his friends and his companions, their banter, their relationship. We were instead told a lot more than shown that they were bros. Their pacing was a little bit off. We kept going on these tangents of lots of description that were just kind of in the way of the plot a lot of the time and didn't feel entirely relevant. So it kind of just dragged on a little bit, I think, in moments. And it just wasn't the one. I do have the rest of the series and I'm not giving up on them. I do want to give it another go. How soon that will be, I'm not too sure, but I would like to. I think I had such high expectations. I think that's where I went wrong. I shouldn't have bigged it up in my head as much as I did, but I did. That sucked. But yeah, I have a full review of that going way into it, all spoiler free as well. So take a look at that if you'd like to know exactly what I did and didn't like about that book and the rating that I gave it. So I have 3 other books that I have not actually discussed on my channel, having read them. The first one being Reaperman by Terry Pratchett. I read Mort and I really enjoyed it. So I kind of expected it to be like that, and there were elements that I did really enjoy in this book, especially the bit with Death in it. His character of kind of like retiring or like getting fired. He was fired basically from being Death, and so he goes and works as a farmer. However, because Death is dead and there's no one to like take people away, the world kind of just goes into a little bit of chaos. People who are meant to be dead aren't able to die, and then you get loads of mini deaths. So you've got like a mouse death, he's really cute, and it all goes a little bit haywire. But then you've also got this weird thing with these snow globes that turn into trolleys, that turn into this big goo thing. I got a little bit lost there, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like maybe I need to research what Terry Pratchett's actually trying to tell me with this, because clearly it's gone over my head. I was confused with that most of the time. Like, I was just reading this like, what are these, what is going on right now? If someone could explain that to me, that would be great. Otherwise, I am gonna research it. But I was entirely confused for the 90% of this book, but I love the bits about death. So I think I probably ended up giving this 3 stars, and I haven't picked up another Terry Pratchett yet. Like, he is a strange dude. I'm not sure if I'm ready for another one. So I'm gonna wait a little bit. I do have the rest of Death's character arc, but as of yet I've not continued, so that won't be for a while. His endings I think are a little bit lackluster as well. Like, that's twice now that I thought like it should just needed a bit more of a punch to it, the ending, whereas it kind of was just a little bit like, I've let my brain go crazy and I have no idea where I'm gonna go, so I'm just gonna stop. That's kind of what it felt like a lot of the time. Something with his endings just don't quite work with me. It's not a great way to leave a book, I don't think. So 3 stars for Terry Pratchett. The next 2 books that I read are by Joe Abercrombie. Surprise, surprise, if you've watched any video on my channel, you know that I love this man. And that is the 2 last standalones in this series. So we've got The Heroes and Red Country. The first standalone, Best Served Cold, is one of my all-time favourite books of all time. Like, I love that book, it's brilliant. These weren't quite as good, but they were still good. Heroes is basically just a long battle. So you've got the North fighting the Union, but in this we've got kind of like the beginnings of the development of technology, you know, explosives are starting to be coming into play. You've got more named people in the North being introduced, more characters that are really funny. So you got Calder, who is a little bit of a wuss, but he is the son of Bethard, who in our first trilogy was the king of the North and kind of a little bit of an antagonist. And he was a little bit of an antagonist against our main characters because he was obviously trying to come to the Union and take it over. So he is the son of that, but he's a little bit of a wuss. Like, he's insanely clever, like he can manipulate people so well. He knows how to play people. He just does not want to fight and is a wuss because he doesn't want to die, which is fair enough, to be honest. I kind of like these wuss characters because they're actually a lot more relatable than the other characters who are like all heroes and like can go in and kill 500 people. I would be like him, you know, I don't want to fight. I would do whatever I could to get out of it, probably. But he's a bit of a wuss, but he's great. He's so funny. And then you've also got like little ones like Tunny, who is another wuss, who just spends the entire time kind of just avoiding conflict in the best way. You've also got your like proper heroes. So we had another character from the first series, a minor character who comes back. He's been through a little bit since then, mainly due to a Best Served Cold, an event that happened in there. And he's got quite a funny inner monologue going on as he goes through the journey. Obviously, Bayaz appears in this again and is an absolute, I hate him. It was really good. I think I gave this 4 stars in the end. I actually really enjoyed it for just a single battle, and I'm not the biggest fan of battle scenes in fantasy. Like, obviously I read a lot of fantasy that has war in it, so they're in there and they can be quite intense, but I prefer like one-on-one fight scenes. This, however, like balanced the whole battle versus kind of like character plot and development quite well. And even though it obviously took place only in a couple days, it was highly paced, and even though it's a chunky one, it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. This was the second best standalone, I believe, so I would recommend. Next we had Red Country, which is basically a Western kind of take on fantasy. We follow this character called Shy, who is done something dodgy in her past. We do kind of get to see about it, but basically she was like a bandit in the past. However, she's kind of come out the other side of that. She's moved back home with her stepdad and her 2 younger siblings. Very early on in the book, her 2 younger siblings are kidnapped by this person who is taking them across the country. We don't know where really or what for. Shy and her stepdad go on a journey to try and obviously get them back. Along the way, they meet this group of people who are going the same direction. There's this theory that there's loads of gold in these hills that they're going to, so they're going to move there and try and find their wealth and fortune and live happily ever after. Doesn't quite work out that way because it is Joe Abercrombie and that is never going to be the case. But I think this was a good book for some reason. Even though it's really small, it did take me very long to get through. I think Shy was a good character. She could be a little bit dry sometimes. We were starting to get a little bit of her personality, I think, through near the end, like in the moments where she was quite stressed and she was kind of like babbling. I liked those bits. We saw a little bit more of her, whereas before then she was a little bit stiff, mainly because she didn't want to talk to anyone, and like I can relate as well, but it also just made it a little bit hard to read. Her stepdad, that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna say anything about her stepdad because I'm not, because I can't without spoiling the biggest thing in the world, so I will not be. Her stepdad is in this, enough said. We also meet another character who has been in previous books, who is funny, kind of a little bit sad at the same time, but he has a lawyer who is the main character in this, and that is Temple. Temple is another kind of cowardly character who does his best to get out of the hot zone. He will literally jump out of windows to avoid a fight. He abandons everyone he ever meets to better himself, basically. But he's not a bad guy. That's the thing. Like, he intends to do the best. He just sucks at it, basically. He goes on a really cool character arc journey, I think, through this, trying to kind of battle these 2 sides of him that wants to do good and that I just cannot do it somehow. So I think he was actually my favourite character and I really liked reading about him. So I think he pulled me through a lot of this as well. This was good, another 4 stars, slightly less than the heroes potentially, but I still really enjoyed it. So the book I ended up DNFing or not finishing, I got pretty far through. Like, for a chunky book, I got 318 pages, so I'm really reluctant to give up on this. I just lost all momentum to read this at this point. This is the second time I've tried reading it. I think I got maybe like 100 pages before this bit last time, so I have made progress. I don't know what it is, it's just every so often it hits a lull and I'm bored and I don't want to pick it up and I can't force myself to do it. I know people love this and I'm really reluctant to give up on it, but I think The Eye of the Wild might not be for me. Apart from this book, all the other books I've got in the series I got second hand, so I'm not too sad about having to give up on this, but I do want to give it a go, especially because I've like committed that much time to it. I need to give it another go. So let me know whether or not you think I should give this another go or I should hang up The Eye of the World key. I don't know. What do you hang up? Book. I don't know. But I really don't want to at the same time. But I think I don't know if it's going to be a waste of my time, and I hate wasting time. Time is precious and I have so many books to read. I don't want to waste it on reading something that I don't want to read. So it might be, I might just have to face facts and give this, like I've stopped in the middle of a chapter. That's not a good sign. I think I might have to give this one up. I'll see what you guys say in the comments and then I'll decide from there. So the 2 audiobooks that I read this month are rereads as well for me. I kind of only can reread books on audiobook just because my brain can't process the new information unless I already know it quite well. But I was rereading The Way of Kings and The Words of Radiance over the last few months. I'm now on Oathbringer, which is the 3rd and, like, from my recollection, my favourite of the 3. So I will talk about that next time. But these books are so good. If you haven't picked up Sanderson, what are you doing with your life? Okay, some people don't like him, that's fair enough. Like, I recommended him to a few people that I was sure would love them, but it just didn't click with the writing style, and that's fair enough. But I love this dude. He is an absolute freaking genius. Oh my god, his Cosmere is phenomenal. People sometimes are a bit intimidated by the mass of it, so there's so many books in the series, but like, you shouldn't. They're quite small, apart from actually this series, small bite-sized bits to get into. You can kind of read whatever you like up until this point, but Way of Kings and Words of Radiance are the best, I think, in that he's created so far. Way of Kings, well, we follow quite a few characters. It is an epic book. This is a big chunky boy, but you will not regret it. I think he is great. There's so much detail in this world, so many characters that are so well done. All of them are unique, all of them have their own trials and tribulations that are so well done that you just can't help but feel for them and relate to them and want to see where they go. Shallan was my least favourite in this book, but Words of Radiance, she completely comes into her own. She is a great character. I love her in that book. Kaladin, so good, and when he gets on and meets other people, I love it. Dalinar is also a great character. He's a little bit dry, but I think in Words of an Oathbringer is when he kind of comes through, so I'm still waiting for his character. I still like him, but we haven't really got to his backstory yet, so I think Oathbringer kind of focuses more on him. To be fair, like Way of Kings, I would say focuses more on Kaladin and his backstory. Or not focuses, but that's the heavy duty backstory bits that we get is Kaladin in this one. Then in Words of Radiance, I say Shallan is who is kind of the focus of the backstory and the character development, and then Oathbringer is kind of like Dalinar's book. He shines through badly and goodly in all kinds of forms. That was not very well said. So I'm excited for that bit, but these were just so good, and I'm just literally listening to them whilst like I'm walking along or I'm in the gym, and I start smiling because the characters will do something and I look like a right idiot, but I don't care because it's Brandon Sanderson, and I will look like an idiot for Brandon Sanderson any day of the week. They're phenomenal, and the audiobooks themselves are really good. I'm incredibly picky with my audiobooks, not just because I struggle to kind of process the audiobook, but also if the voice isn't good enough, I'm not going to be sitting there listening to that. Like, that's just going to annoy me so much. I'm not going to make it through. Normally it's like if it's not in a British accent, I can't get over it. I know that sounds really bad, but there's just something that kind of like throws me because it's too dissimilar to how my own voice would be when I was reading. These are American, but the male voice especially is so good that I can get over it. The woman I found a little bit annoying, but I've kind of got used to her now, so we move, it's fine. But I love these audiobooks. I think they're great. I think they're really good. If you're intimidated by the size and you want to get your money's worth for your Audible credit, this is worth it. You've got like 30 plus hours each audiobook with this, so you're going to be there a long time. I managed to read like one a month, listening to quite like an hour at least a day probably, or an hour. Yeah, that would be one a month if it's 30 plus hours. So they are quite a commitment, but they're worth it. I didn't even give a synopsis of what this is if you don't know what it is, but I can't, there's just too much scope. It's this grand epic fantasy wonderfulness. There you go, summary for you. So there we have my wrap up for the last few months of the year and last year. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you read, what you would recommend, and if you liked or disliked any of the books that I've talked about today, and I will see you in the next video next Sunday. Bye!